fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I'm Andrew Chelney alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 55, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Peter Laviolette is now officially the new head coach of the Rangers after weeks and weeks and weeks of us saying maybe he actually got the official tag. We're off and running. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about maybe how his defensive structure actually benefits the Rangers. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. Nick, eat Arby's.
We're here. This has been the consistent drumbeat. When they first fired Gallant, it was really loud from Dreger and the other national people, maybe Quinville, maybe Babcock, but that kind of died out pretty quickly. Larry kind of shot that down relatively quickly, and we were left in this kind of weird in-between, like maybe they're waiting to see what happens with Sheldon Keefe, maybe they're waiting to see what happens with Mike Sullivan. Nothing became of either of those. They ended up with the guy they've been linked to. I read the very friendly piece that Arthur wrote in The Athletic this morning, where they just talked to a bunch of guys who played with Peter Laviolette when he played for Team USA in some international tournament right before Laviolette played his 12 games in the NHL as a Ranger. Talked with Richter and Brian Leach and other guys from that team.
And by the way, the welcome back to the Rangers thing.
Where's Rafi Diaz's welcome back to the Rangers?
Give me a break, Nick. Listen. I understand he played 12 games as a Ranger during the age of the silent films, but welcome back is such a stretch.
They have to find anything they can do to play to people's emotions because they know this isn't a popular hire. That's part of it. This guy's an original Ranger. It's why the Rangers made Brian Leach and I think Granato and Mike Richter available for that interview to talk to The Athletic. We need to massage this. Everybody loves the 94 Rangers. If the 94 Rangers endorse Peter Laviolette, people are going to endorse Peter Laviolette. It's like when the Rangers hired Gerard Gallant and then Mark Messier was magically available to talk to ESPN radio that day to endorse the hire. The Rangers are not subtle about using their media channels to kind of get their messaging across. It's whatever.
By the way, 94 was 30 years ago. Yeah. At a certain point, when does it become monotonous for legends to be like, hey, this new guy is the fix. That's it. That's the missing piece. It's like, dude, we've been doing it for 30 years, man. Eventually it's going to fall on deaf ears. No?
They got to win another one. That's the only way. That is the only way we stop hearing from Mark Messier or Brian Leach or Mike Richter anytime something important with the team happens, is they need to win another one. And to be frank, as we've discussed most of this offseason so far, because there hasn't been actual hockey to talk about, we know the Rangers are more than just a coach away from getting over the finish line. Sure, maybe Laviolette can get a little bit more out of your Zibanejad, your Panarin, your Kreider, your Trocheck, etc., but they need more than just a little bit more from those guys, because realistically, if you can get from 90% of Panarin, Zibanejad, et cetera, to 93, 94%, what is that? One more goal, two more goals over the course of an entire season? The real issue here, and something we're going to talk about today, is how all the pieces fit together, playing a more cohesive style, something that you and I beat the drum of all season, that the Rangers don't have an identity. They didn't really ever have a coherent game plan.
Right.
You never knew what you were going to get night to night because of the lack of cohesion and structure, where any given night, anybody could be playing with anybody. I mean, we spent the first half of this season with Dryden Hunt in the top six, with Jimmy Vesey in the top six, with Barclay Goodrow in the top six, because it's not my job to develop players. It's my job to win, which very funny. He did not win, but that's always the irony of those types of situations is like, well, it's my job to win. Well, you're not winning anyway. So why wouldn't you try something different? But I digress. So that brings us
part of winning is developing your players. I don't know if Gerard Gallant is aware of that fact, but
okay, here's a question for you.
In order to win, you need everybody to play well for sure, but you need to get the most out of everybody on the roster. You need everything to just go as well as it possibly can in order to win 16 games in the playoffs and to lift a trophy. So isn't part of winning to develop the players in order to win? Is that not part of the equation, or am I going crazy? I'm not a head coach in the NHL, so what do I know? But from my vantage point, feel like developing has to be part of everybody's job if you're a coach.
You would think so. And that's why those comments struck me as so like weird and tone deaf, because like if you're not constantly trying to get better, isn't that technically developing? If you're trying to get better at what you're doing, you're developing your skills. So I don't understand that mindset. But enough kvetching about the past. We have to look towards what this upcoming season is going to look like. And one thing we do have a firm grasp on is going to be the defensive personnel, because they have seven, forgot about Ben Harper. They have 7 defensemen under contract now, because they signed Zach Jones.
How could you forget?
Because he didn't play for 3 months.
He just coughed the puck up in the neutral zone a second ago. I don't know how you could possibly forget about him.
That assumes he actually was fast enough to get to the puck to play the puck. But I digress. The Rangers have 7 defensemen under contract. More than likely, they will not be bringing an additional defenseman in unless it's on a PTO. If it's like a Michael Stone type guy who's never going to play but only play when guys are injured, yeah, whatever. But I assume that's what Ben Harper's going to be. They took care of Zach Jones last week, 2 years RFA. They still got Matthew Robertson, who, from all the prospect people I talked to, he still probably needs a little bit more seasoning before he's ready for an NHL run. But you got 7 guys. You're going to have Fox, Lindgren, Miller, Trouba, Schneider, Zach Jones, Ben Harper. Those are your 7 guys. Maybe you bring in another veteran in there, kind of what they've done the last couple of years with that third spot, whether it be Braun, Mikkola, etc. But we kind of have an understanding of the personnel. And we were talking about it before we started. The thing that's frustrating about the Rangers defense is there is talent on this defense, of course. You got a Norris Trophy winner. You've got a defenseman who's had multiple 45, 50-point seasons, a really highly touted first-round pick, a really good developmental blood and guts kind of guy, a first-round pick who everybody is really high on. They see the traits, but I've yet to really get to where a lot of people are on Braden Schneider for a variety of reasons. And then that 6th spot has been a revolving door now for quite a little while. So that's kind of the archetypes we're working with here.
I also think that's part of that's also probably part of the issue with Braden Schneider, is that he doesn't have a reliable partner to kind of just thrive with, I should say. Like if you maybe Zach Jones and Braden Schneider is that third pairing that really kind of cements that blue line all the way through. Maybe Zach Jones is that guy. Maybe he's not. I mean, I don't know. But they signed Zach Jones to be in the NHL. It's a one-way deal, so they don't expect him to go back down to the AHL. So Zach Jones, by all the information that we have, will be playing in the league next year. So it, at least right now, looks like it'll be a Schneider-Jones third pairing. Maybe that's what Schneider needs, is somebody that is there from September to April/June. Maybe a guy can dream. That is there and is going to develop chemistry, with him throughout the entire way. Because using Mikkola / Ben Harper / guy off the street / whoever to kind of fill in that void doesn't help Braden Schneider develop. And I understand that Gallant has never cared about that, but you need you need that kind of stability, one on the third pairing, but also two with a young guy on the third pairing.
So this is something we're going to talk about. I've got some visuals, some data to kind of support what we're talking about here in terms of the Rangers' defensive issues, because the casual perception of the Rangers is they're pretty good defensively because you look at their goals against metrics, that kind of stuff. But of course, people who watch the Rangers night to night know that is not exactly how it's drawn up. It is a lot more guys running around with their like chickens with their heads cut off and the goalie making saves to bail them out. Like, it's great that, Ben Harper and Braden Schneider had 95 save percentage Igor behind them this year. Doesn't mean they were good defensively, but just because you don't concede a lot of goals does not mean you're great defensively. Yes, some of the Rangers' strategy is rooted in letting the other team generate as much offense as they want from bad areas. That's going to lead to skewed expected goals, skewed chances for and against metrics, because you're inviting the other team to shoot because you're collapsing lower. But at a certain point, if you are on defense for prolonged stretches, you're not having as many chances offensively, which is something I want to talk about tying to Peter Laviolette in Washington, and you are going to wear out over the course of a game. The more defense you play, the more likely you are to make a mistake, whether that's a post, a penalty, a puck going in the net. The more defense you have to play, the more likely you are to make a mistake. It's why in every sport now, with every sport being so offensively skewed, you see this especially in the NFL and college football now. The best defense is to not play defense at all. You cannot concede points if you are on offense. That has to be the Rangers' mindset going forward. And we talked about it a lot this year. The window is great in a pinch, but if your default is to play the puck off the window and try and survive for the next sequence, you're just going to be on your heels right again. And that's really the issue at hand for me.
The thing that I want everybody that's not a Rangers fan to understand is that the Rangers, all of last season, essentially only had one D pairing with any kind of chemistry. It was Ryan Lindgren and Adam Fox. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses. They knew how to back each other up. They knew
they complemented each other very well.
They complemented each other, and they had an understanding of where the other was on the ice and how to best support them in the ways that they can. Keandre Miller and Jacob Trouba, for all 82 games, had not a single idea of how to play together. They looked awful for large stretches of the season. They didn't know where each other were. The passing was all over the place. The communication was all over the place. A lot of missed assignments that led to goals against. It was bad. There was not a whole lot of cohesion, and they had the entire season to figure it out, and they still couldn't figure it out. And the third pairing, as we talked about, Braden Schneider had a revolving door with him. It got a little bit better with Mikkola back there, and it kind of got solidified as the season went on. But for 60 games, it was insert person here with Braden Schneider. Hey, go have fun. So there was not a whole lot of everybody knows their role from 1 to 6 down. It was Fox and Lindgren know what they're gonna do together. That's it. So that contributed to the Rangers' issues defensively. If you don't understand what your defensive partner is going to do, where he's going to be, what he's like. Obviously, you can't, realistically know what they're thinking, but you can
Adam
kind
Fox
of guess.
Does. That's why.
But he's a one of one. He's an anomaly as opposed to everybody else. But you if you can't trust your defensive partner, if you can't play off of them well, that's not going to lead to good defense, and that's one of the issues that people aren't really talking about when they talk about the Rangers as a whole. They look at the lineup and they go, "Oh yeah, I mean they're fine. Oh, how bad could it be?" But if you really watch this team, you begin to understand just how defensively misguided they are because they never know where anybody else is.
So this ties into what we're talking about. So I'm going to pull up the first slide here. And this is about leaving the defensive zone, something we were just talking about. We're using the window versus absorbing pressure and that kind of conundrum. So you see how this is laid out. You got a 4-quadrant graph here. So you look at where the Rangers are. They are below average in terms of the amount of retrievals they generate. And they are below average in terms of the amount of mistakes they make trying to exit the zone. We know that Ben Harper and Braden Schneider, hot potato with the puck, constantly under pressure below their own goal line, liable to turn the puck over at any given moment. We know Jacob Trouba struggles with this as well, where once he gets to the puck, he often fails to clear the puck because he doesn't have the foot speed to create space for himself to get the puck out of danger. The reason I wanted to use these visuals and why I went to all 3 zones, Corey Schneider, subscribe to Corey Schneider stuff. Some of the best work on the internet. It's very affordable and it's very useful. If you do any type of hockey content, all 3 zones, it's well worth your money. So comparing where the Rangers are up in that second quadrant on the left versus where Washington is, you get a little bit better understanding. Washington, a lot fewer mistakes trying to exit the zone. That's good. This is something that we as Ranger fans, me in particular, have been asking for a while. More coherent link-up play. One of the main problems the Rangers have had, I should say, is when they're trying to deflect pressure, when they're trying to get the puck out of trouble, they like going left to right as opposed to trying to get around the pressure. When you go left to or right, that invites the other team to step up on their forecheck. It gives you less room to operate, and you are inviting the other team further. When the other team is able to pinch up on you, they don't have to go as far to create offense because they've come up deeper on you. And this is something that if the Rangers are if Peter Laviolette is truly going to instill a cohesive, disciplined, offensive, defensive cohesion, it starts in the defensive zone. If you want better offense, it starts on defense. I know it might be ironic here that we're talking about defense when the Rangers' problem in the playoffs was they didn't score enough. Part of that was because they were on defense so much. So that's really the starting point of this conversation for me, is understanding that relationship between defense and offense.
You can't score unless you actually have the puck on your stick. And now
Exactly.
I know as a concept that might be crazy to some people, but the thing about hockey is that if you don't have the puck on your stick and it's in your zone the entire time, you can't score goals. So a really good defense leads to a fantastic offense, because if the puck is never in your own zone, guess what? The offense is going at all times. The offense by default is a lot better because they actually have a chance to score. If all four lines all of the time are hemmed in your own zone, I don't care if you have 12 prime Gretzkys on your team. If the puck is always in your own zone, you're not scoring goals. That's just not how hockey works. So a good offense has to start with, okay, how do we minimize the amount of time the puck is in our own zone, and how do we counter that by going the other way and creating offensive chances?
That's really the last point I want to make before I change slides here, is the up and down, the y-axis of this chart is the amount of puck retrievals you have to generate. You see that Chicago, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Arizona, Columbus, the Islanders, the Kings, the Ducks, Lightning, all worse than the Rangers. The thing about this is it means that the Rangers are in their own zone trying to recover the puck more often than other teams. They have more than an average amount of puck retrievals during the course of a game. That means the other team is getting the puck at least through the neutral zone more often, because if they're dumping the puck in and then the Rangers are engaged in puck battles, that means the other team has the puck. Like, you can conceptually be comfortable with the other team dumping in on you as much as you want. But if you have to drop back that much, and that's part of why the Rangers have so many retrieval errors, why they have so many botched retrievals, is they are on defense way too much. And that is one of the foundational principles of what this team needs to focus on going forward, is minimizing the amount of defense they have to play, to Andrew's point.
By the way, I just want to point out that the Carolina Hurricanes right now in this graphic are just chilling by the pool by themselves on an island in Tahiti somewhere. They are on a different planet
than everybody else.
And everybody else, and this is one of the things too that, you know, the Hurricanes are analytical darlings, quote unquote, but like they never, quote unquote, also get it done in the playoffs. It's like, okay, well, Bobrovsky was, you know, like if there was ever a way for a goaltender to have more than a 1,000 save percentage, like that was Bobrovsky in that series. I mean, in that like few week stretch, Bobrovsky was like, if you shot a missile at him, he'd stop it. That's what
he was a 950
goalie. That's what Bobrovsky was doing.
Goalie.
So the Hurricanes got absolutely goalied that entire series. And I mean, their goalie wasn't incredible, but like Bobrovsky was just so much better, it didn't even matter. So, you know, for the Hurricanes, like ideally, what you should do as a coach in the NHL. And now again, I'm not one of those people, so what do I know? But I would definitely watch a lot of Carolina's tape and steal what they do, because clearly it really works for them. They don't turn the puck over a lot. They are just very responsible in their own zone, and that mitigates a lot of the issues that the Rangers have, where they cough the puck up because they don't know where everybody is, and that turns into a goal against, miscommunication, missed team play, et cetera, et cetera. That just it mitigates a lot of those issues.
So the counterpoint to that, and this is the natural counterpoint, and I'll change slides here to keep the conversation progressing, is part of the reason Carolina had issues in the postseason was the fact that they don't generate enough quality offense, that they enjoy doing volume. They create a high volume of chances, and that's why they didn't have to play as much defense as the Rangers, because yes, they're constantly in the offensive zone, cycling the other team, generating offense. But the counterpoint to that is you're not generating enough dangerous offense to mitigate your lack of shooting talent. That's really been Carolina's shortfall, is they generate a ton of offense. It is very rare for Carolina to lose the 5-on-5 expected goals or chances for and against battle. But because they don't have any real high-end talent, aside from Svechnikov and Aho, but Svechnikov not healthy for these playoffs, and Aho limited, dinged up, etc.
And Pacioretty as well.
And Pacioretty as well, who played, I think, 4 games for them before they got hurt. So moving along here, this is a comparison of exits with possession versus total exits. So what we were just talking about before we pulled up the visuals, the Rangers love to use the window. Just get absorbed, relieve the pressure, Buy yourself enough time to regroup. And that speaks to this graph, this chart speaks to that, where you look at where they are in relation to exits with possession, meaning you skated the puck or you passed the puck out of the zone. The Rangers are firmly before the average metric of that. They are before the average of 28 and a half exits with possession. So that to me means they are just trying to survive to the next play. And when you are constantly in survival mode, that's where you get into the defensive breakdowns that we're talking about. Why do K'Andre Miller and Jacob Trouba have so many breakdowns? Because they have to play too much defense. Because they're in their own zone for extended periods of time. Yeah, they're going to miss a, hey, me, you, of passing somebody off in the defensive zone. And that gets to it. And you look at this chart here, and the Capitals firmly up in that controlled, lots of exits and exits with control. That is encouraging. That speaks to the conjecture, because everybody likes to say, who's written about this, Peter Laviolette coaches a well-structured, disciplined team, but doesn't actually do any of the dirty work to explain how they play cohesively, why they play with so much structure.
Well, that would take a lot of effort, Nick. You got to understand. These people are on a deadline. They can't put the effort in.
I put together this slideshow in 35 minutes this morning, and I'm going to... That's the point here. If you want real information, you're going to have to go looking for it. But
This is why, by the way, that you listen/watch us. And by the way, like I know some people just listen to us, and we welcome you aboard. There are graphics here that are on the video right now. So if you are listening, like we are going over, via all three zones, because Corey Schneider is phenomenal at what he does. But we have visuals of these statistics and all these things that we're referencing. So just put a reference for the.
We'll put together a thread of these on Twitter. I'll make the slideshow available for anyone who wants to look at it on Twitter. That way you get a better understanding of what we're talking about here, because we're trying to bridge that gap, the in between of the overly complicated versus the just trust me, I'm saying this because I say this guy, which is kind of the issue with a lot of Rangers coverage. I find that it's just, hey, Peter Laviolette's a good structured coach without explaining how that's actually true. So
that's why you listen/watch us, because we're here to break it all down so that you are smarter by the end of the episode.
Yeah. So the last point on this I want to make is, if the Rangers are going to get into more of that cohesive, that structured, that good look, how we always talked about how it looked clunky, it wasn't very fluid during the course of the season, that it was a lot of waiting for a good player to make a play as opposed to making something good happen. If we are led to believe that what Peter Laviolette does is replicable, that he can get the Rangers to play this way, we're going to see something in that regard where they are not going to be chicken shit in their own zone, where they are going to be scattered and passing guys off left and right and leaving guys open on the back door. So that alone should be encouraging. So toggling over here, we're going to start comparing Ranger defensemen versus Capital defensemen and kind of get an understanding of the style, how they like to play, etc. So this is the individual defensemen for both the Rangers and the Capitals in regards to something we talked about before, retrievals and exits. You look at the Rangers, the only Rangers who generate retrievals that lead to exits at an above average rate, you got 4 of the 6, Fox, Lindgren, Miller, Trouba. The issue with Miller and Trouba is they also turn the puck over. They also fail to exit the zone at an above average rate. Because they are on defense so much, yeah, they generate a lot of zone exits, but they also make a lot of mistakes trying to generate zone exits because they are on defense so much. And then you go further down, Schneider, Harper, even further to the left, more mistakes, more failed zone exits. And then you look over here at Washington's, if you're looking on YouTube, where you get over to everybody aside from Martin Ferravari, who was not a regular the entire season. Ferravari, I always forget how to say his name because it's got the weird phonetic pronunciation. Martin Ferravari is what I'm going with. And if I am incorrect, I will issue a correction. But everybody aside from Ferravari, above average at exits with possession. That is good. That is something that, hey, we're not making a lot of mistakes. We're keeping it simple. We're keeping the puck moving. That is ideally what you want your transition play to look like. Transition is supposed to be fast, rapid. You're getting the puck moving, you're getting it out of danger, and you're trying to not be on defense that long. For the Rangers, this past season in particular, they were on defense an awful lot, struggling to get out of the zone and fighting the other team's forecheck in more aggressively. And that's where you hope that a change in coach can have a tangible difference. A lot of people spent the entire season saying, well, what would you like Gallant to do? Well, I don't know. Try something else.
Develop, please.
trial and error. Like at
Yeah.
some point you need to realize, hey, I want to play this way, but my team isn't well equipped to play this way. Like he constantly complained, we're too much east-west in the neutral zone. We don't dump the puck in enough. But what do you do at practice then, Gerard? Like I that was something I found interesting. I forget whose column it was, if it was Vince or if it was Arthur Staples, who said something to the effect of, under Gallant, practices were short, brief, and I'll see you guys at the rink later tonight. And some of the hope of Laviolette is that he's going to run a harder practice, that he's going to instill discipline and play a style of play that they're going to want a little bit more of. And that's your hope. And that's part of why you and I spend a lot of the season complaining about the coach, because he would say one thing and then do nothing to kind of get the team to where he wanted them to be. It was just complaining. It was the substitute teacher going, hey, sit down, to a kid standing up and throwing shit in the back of class. And I don't care if you want to be everybody's friend and you're the player's coach. If you want better results, you need to change what you're doing as a coach.
If you want to be a player's coach, be an assistant coach, man. Like that's the easiest way to do it, because a head coach actually has, I mean, that's our assistant coaches have responsibilities. I'm not saying they don't, but the head coach is responsible for the entire operation. So if you want to be somebody that the players love, that, you know, is very happy-go-lucky, that like, hey, it's all good, I'm your friend, be the assistant coach, because at least at that point, you know, practice isn't like 100% your responsibility. Games aren't 100% your responsibility. It's on the head coach to be the to be the leader and dictate, you know, the X's and O's and do all these things. So if you want to just be the, hey, like, I'm your friend in the coaching staff guy, just be an assistant coach. Like, don't be the head coach, because then everything falls apart, as you mentioned.
So this is the next step of that, the zone exits versus the turnover. So again, we talked about before using the window versus skating and passing the puck out of danger. You'll notice very quickly here that the Rangers are very concentrated in the clears per 60, meaning using the window in that bottom right corner. Even Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren, the Rangers' consensus best pair, is pretty close to average in terms of clears per 60 versus exits with possession. To have only 3 of your 6 regulars be above average at exits with possession, and Trouba's basically right at that line of exits with possession, that tells you the Rangers don't play cohesive enough. That tells you that they're just trying to survive on defense, that they're not doing anything to actively do better. And part of that does fall on the forwards. How many times you listen to the show during the season where Andrew and I would say, the forwards are flying the zone too early, the defensemen have no one to pass the puck to, they have to clear it out, and they take a bad icing, or they turn the puck over in the neutral zone, or they turn the puck over in their own zone. And that's because there isn't enough cohesion. Defense, neutral zone, offense. They are all interconnected. If you fall apart in one of those 3 zones, the rest of your game isn't going to work. You can try and cheat it, which is something the Rangers have done for the better part of the last 3 seasons. I've been writing about these zone exit entry issues since David Quinn was the coach 3 years ago in the 56-game season. They have not had a cohesive, we get the puck needs to go here, then to here, then we look for our scoring chances. It has been a lot of freelancing. It has been a lot of high-end players trying to make do with the situation they have, whether it be Panarin and Zibanejad. And there's something I want to talk about with Panarin, and I kind of want to do like a whole episode on it, because I was doing something earlier last week. Is
it his shaved head? Is that what you want to talk about?
I don't know if that picture's real or not, too, by the way. I don't know if that picture was real or not, because being the nerd that I am, I saved the picture from Twitter, I threw it in camera raw, and it said it was a screenshot. It wasn't the actual authentic picture, the version of it I saw. So I can't comment if the picture's been edited or not. So I was curious. I don't know yet. We'll see in September, or if there's a wedding this summer that he makes an appearance at, because we don't know. We genuinely don't know. Yeah. But it was about how his offense has changed since he got to New York, how he's not shooting as much, how he's not getting to his dangerous areas as much, and it's why he's not as effective at 5-on-5. But circling back to this graph, one last thing on it. You see, again, all of Washington's defensemen are at least close to, if not above average, at exits with possession. You see John Carlson, you see Alexiev, you see Matt Irwin. Those guys, John Carlson plays the most out of all those guys, far and away. He's somebody who, you're going to give him a little bit more free reign to kind of make things up as he wants because of his skill set. more clears than you would probably like. You would like somebody with his puck skills to be more facilitating offensively, to get the puck to a forward or to skate it out himself. But that's not really the issue here. You see the difference between these two visuals here, where pretty much all of the Rangers are compressed in that bottom right. And then Washington, pretty much everybody is above average in terms of getting the puck to offense with possession. We talk about it all the time. Dump and chase is great if you can actually go and recover the puck. You need to play a style that's conducive to your guys' skill set. And the hope is the Rangers are going to be able to create a facsimile of this, that they are going to be able to break out cohesively, not be on defense as much. And that's just going to lead to more offense by simple math, because they're not going to be on defense as much.
Well, that's the hope with Peter Laviolette, is that this dude has been around the league for 100 years, coaching all of the teams. He's collecting, like, you know, the Infinity Jet, like the Infinity...
Stones.
There you go. I watch no movies, so I don't really know what that's about, but all I know is the memes. So, you know, the idea with Peter Laviolette is that he's been around the block for a while. He knows systems well, and he knows how to, like, at least how to sort of maybe fix players. Like, and those are the three things that the Rangers are kind of hoping for. Because under Gerard Gallant, he fixed nothing. He didn't do anything in practice. And he lied to the media. So, like, at least for Laviolette, like, if he comes in and whips the players into shape, if he establishes some kind of, okay, this is our game plan, game in and game out, this is who we are, and this is how we're going to play, because your previous head coach didn't do any of that. So here I am to come in and be hard on you, to establish our identity, to figure out, okay, we are going to play this way, and this is how we're going to do it. Because with Gerard Gallant, he had his own system, and he kept trying to put a square peg in a round hole. With Peter Laviolette, at least the hope is that he's going to be a little bit more malleable to his own playbook, to the roster the Rangers have. Because clearly trying to jam it into the hole that doesn't, fit doesn't work. As case in point, what happened with Gallant.
So this one here, similar idea. So up and down, we're talking about just the amount of times a defenseman is retrieving the puck in their own zone. Left to right is exits with possession. The further to the right you are, the more exits you create with possession. Up and down, the higher up you are, the more times you have to go and get the puck. You'll notice very quickly here that Trouba, Fox, Lindgren, averaging above average exits with possession. But everybody, aside from Ryan Lindgren, has to retrieve the puck more than average. Again, tying back to what I've been beating over the head here since we started this episode, the Rangers are playing too much defense. It's great that you have one of the best goalies in the world. That doesn't mean you have to make his life miserable to use him. Like, if same principle applies, you want Shesterkin to be even better, make him do less work. If he doesn't have to save 50, he only has to save 30. The workload you ease his workload, you get better starts out of him, you can use him more frequently if you're so inclined. That's another component of this. It's great that you've centered your team build around riding the best goalie in the world. You could also just have a good team in front of the best goalie in the world and make his life easier.
They tried for 15 years to do with Henrik Lundqvist what they're doing right now with Shesterkin, is we have the greatest goalie on the planet. Everybody do their best and try to win. Like, that's it. And it failed. And they've, to this point, have done the exact same thing with Igor Shesterkin. Shesterkin has been standing on his head, but because he also can't score goals, the Rangers have been losing.
Yet.
Yeah,
he will.
He will. Eventually, he will score. He will score a goal for sure. But Shesterkin can only do so. Like, he can't also play defense while also playing offense while also scoring goals. Like, he's doing way more than he is being asked to on a day-to-day basis. He is one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie, on the entire planet. And if you can't win with that kind of talent in your net, then that is a fundamental flaw in the roster construction of your team. And we saw that with Lundqvist's entire tenure for 15 years. He was consistently one of, if not the best goalies on the planet. The Rangers continued to fail to build around him, and he retired ringless. So unless they do it again with Shesterkin, which they've done at this point, hopefully they stop doing that. they have to look in the mirror and say, hey, we've already tried this once. It didn't work. Let's try something else, please.
So this visual above here is about entry defense, meaning when the Rangers are in the neutral zone, who's aggressive and trying to pressure the puck carrier versus who's going to be more liable to make a mistake. And you'll see here, so left to right is the amount of possessions carried in against. So the further to the right you are, that means the other team is carrying the puck in against you, not dumping it in. When you are up and down is the denial percentage, like how good you are at stopping them from gaining the other zone. So you'll see up there, Adam Fox, very aggressive in the neutral zone, but also very effective at preventing zone entries. If you are forcing the other team into regrouping in the neutral zone, that's buying yourself more time for your forwards to get back defensively, to get into a better posture defensively. Then you're looking left to right here. You're seeing guys who, as we like to call them, traffic cones. Is that what we politely call the guys who get skated around like Ben Harper? You'll notice Ryan Lindgren is there. He's in that quadrant with Ben Harper, but that's because guys don't try Adam Fox. When they are on the ice together, the other team is going to be significantly more inclined to attack Ryan Lindgren than it is going to be to skate at Adam Fox. Trouba, slightly above average, Braden Schneider, and the below average in both categories, but you get an understanding here. The Rangers are on defense a lot. They are forced into their own zone consistently, and they really do have a hard time creating offense, and it's all interconnected. I'm going to pull up the heat maps here from HockeyViz, and this is what the Rangers were last year at 5-on-5. So below average offensively, slightly above average defensively, and it tells you where are the Rangers not getting the puck. Those blue areas are where they are not getting the puck. Those are where you want the puck. That high slot between the two circles, the net mouth, those are your most dangerous possible chances. And all of this is tied together. So conceptually, if there are 70 scoring chances between both teams in a hockey game, but one team has 45 and the other has 25, then you're going to start to have to, okay, we only have 25 scoring chances a game. We have maybe 4 high danger of those 25. That's where it gets into a simple math problem. And I know people don't like reducing hockey to math because there are factors involved that the math can't account for. The rebounds, the directions, the what makes hockey hockey. What we were talking about before.
The puck luck of it all. Right.
Yeah, the puck luck of it all, which makes some people uncomfortable. That the game is very random. You can be really good and it just can not be your night, which does happen. But if the Rangers are going to get closer to where they want to be, it's got to start at 5-on-5 with better defense and offense. We can talk all we want, the power play, special teams, the goaltending. Look at what Vegas just did with the goal differential they had at 5-on-5 in this playoff run. One of the most dominant playoff runs of the post 2004 kind of where we start modern NHL history. With the introduction of the salary cap in 04-05 at the start of the 05-06 season, that's where we start modern NHL history. Vegas's 5-on-5 goal differential is the best of any cup winner since that lockout. That goes to show you where the game is going and where you need to be emphasizing your priorities. It is great Panarin and Zibanejad were both over 90 points this season. When 37, 38 of those are on the power play, you realize your calculus in the playoffs becomes a lot more challenging. What's the stat I keep citing, Andrew? That the Rangers didn't win any of the playoff games against the Devils where they didn't score a power play goal. If you are that dependent on scoring on the power play to win your games, you are not set up the right way for success. You are making your job more difficult than it needs to be.
The thing about relying on your power play is that it's great in the regular season when referees call things. Come the playoffs, when referees don't call anything, what are you going to do to create offense? The biggest thing that I'll say about that is that, okay, they'll call in the first round, second round. The refs call nothing in the finals.
So would you I hate to be the well actually guy.
Uh-huh.
That has not bared out the last 2 years in the playoffs. Penalties are being called at a reasonably comparable clip to the regular season.
Glad because that's not usually that's not the case. But the
last 2 years it's different. Yes.
Yeah.
But generally speaking,
generally there's less there's less power play time come playoffs than the regular season. So if you are relying on your power play to drive the entire game, then you're I think that's objectively the wrong decision to make. You have to have strong 5-on-5 offense because if the 5-on-5 offense is something that you can control. If the referees don't call penalties, that is outside of your control. So why are you relying on outside forces to generate your offense? Why can't you generate your offense internally and have the power play be a nice little bonus attached to it? Because if your 5-on-5 play is really good, and also on your power play you have all these demons that can score at will, then you are one of the most dangerous teams on the planet. But if you can't score to save your life at 5-on-5 and the refs aren't calling power plays for you, then you're SOL. Like you can't do anything to positively impact the game. And like that's a fundamental flaw of how the Rangers have played the last few seasons is like, hey, we 5-on-5 is whatever. Just give us on the power play. But it's like, it's outside of your control to get power plays. If the refs aren't calling anything, what are you going to do to score? 5-on-5 has to be the main driver. Also, that's where most of the play is anyway.
Yes. That's always the foundation of my argument for this about why do you care so much? Why do you get so mad that they generate so much 5? 80 to 85% of any game is at 5-on-5. If you are only winning that 15% of the game, you are leaving way too much up to chance in your outcomes. You can have better outcomes by driving both. And then real quick, this is Washington's. Washington slightly below average offensively, right at average defensively. So Washington also struggling to get to that dangerous area, but you take that in with the grain of salt that Washington did kind of phone it in that second half of the season. That once they realized, hey, we're not making the playoffs, they sold off Orlov. They traded who's the other forward they traded to the Bruins that I'm drawing a blank on? It was Garnet Hathaway. Yeah. So once Washington kind of phoned it in, you kind of get less quality statistics, but conceptually, I understand why Laviolette seems I won't say tantalizing because it took Drury 6 weeks to pick him, but better than what you had. And again, this is a tough sell. You and I have been, for the last month, neither of these guys, whether it was Hines, Laviolette, nobody of the retreads was that impressive. That Drury is trying to buy himself as much time as he can with this job. He knows he's probably not getting another coach. If they don't win a cup within the next 2 years, 3 years, whenever Laviolette's time is up, that kind of seems like the logical Drury's gone too. If they haven't won anything or if they haven't made if they make the conference finals this year and next year and they don't win, okay, I could see them buying both of them some time. But for the big picture, the magnifying, some of this is self-preservation. But we talk about all the time how honest you are with your intentions. You can say your goal is to win the Stanley Cup. Doesn't mean that's actually where your team is bracketed, what kind of group they fall into. The Rangers are going to be, 9th, 10th best odds to win the Stanley Cup going into next season, if I had to guess, based on where kind of public opinion is on them. They're middle of the pack. They're a little bit above average because the high-end players they have. But it really kind of feels that barring something weird, like if you get a 70-point season out of Hedl, Kakko, Lafreniere, okay, maybe we can reassess where they are in that pecking order. But it really does kind of feel like, damn, they missed their shot the last 2 seasons, that these were the best 2 cracks at it they were going to get.
The one thing that's kind of the X factor in all this is Lafreniere. If Peter Laviolette can somehow come in and start developing this guy, which Gerard Gallant very publicly refused to do, if Peter Laviolette could come in and actually work with this kid to figure out, okay, these are the things that you're doing wrong, here's how to fix them, and here's how to really dominate this game at the NHL level. If Peter Laviolette could come in and do these things that are really going to make the number 1 overall pick look more like a number 1 overall pick and really let him shine, then we're cooking. Because that's the biggest X factor. Kakko's been a lot better. Filipino's gotten a lot better, and they continue to develop. But Lafreniere is really that X factor. If that line, if those 3 guys can really start to drive play and score at will, and that's where a lot of the secondary offense comes from, then it's a whole new ball game. Because at least if Zibanejad doesn't score at 5-on-5 for the 11th game in a row, then Lafreniere could come in and he has a 2-goal game, and all of a sudden those issues that were so glaringly bad over the course of the past couple of seasons could be mitigated, because now, the Rangers aren't losing 3-1. They're maybe winning 4-3 because Lafreniere scored a goal. Hito scored a goal in a way that he hasn't scored before. That is the biggest X factor for the Rangers. If Laviolette could come in and really hone in on that kid line and really get them going to the level that we kind of expect them to be, especially with Lafreniere being the number 1 pick and hasn't really been looking like it. We've seen flashes here and there, but if he could come in and really just kind of unlock that potential, we're cooking.
So this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I had texted you about this during the week. Last week was I think it was Larry who reported that the Rangers were interested in Jay Leach, and Jay Leach told them, "I don't think I'm ready for this job." And this ties into something you had said, I want to say 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, that just because, face value, coach in New York, you're going to get well compensated, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a great landing spot, especially for your first job, because we know, we just talked about it in regards to Laviolette. The pressure is as high as it can be. There is not a lot of wiggle room. There is not any room for error. You need to get through to the veterans, and you need to unlock another phase in Hito, Kakko, Lafreniere, Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider. You need to get that next tier out of those lower guys while also being able to get more out of your veteran guys. And it's a very tight rope to walk, because you mess up on your first crack, you might not get another one for 5-10 years. And Jay Leach is a young guy. He's only in his 40s. But if he really wants the right landing spot, I don't blame him for not wanting to take this job. You said it. The Rangers are a difficult job to take, and I understand why a first-time coach wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about of a returning coach is a lot of pressure. And the whole retread conversation that we had before, but as a first time coach, if you get this wrong, if you don't bring an original 6 team to the promised land of a Stanley Cup and day one of being a head coach, and Jimmy Dolan comes in and says, "Hey, win the Stanley Cup, or I'll make sure you never work again." It's a lot for a first time coach to come in and perform under these conditions. So it makes a lot of sense why Jay Leach wouldn't want to coach the Rangers. On top of the New York media and from the fans' expectations and all that, you have Jim Dolan barking in your ear 24/7 when he remembers that he owns the Rangers, that hey, if you don't win the cup, I'll make sure that you never work in hockey again. It's scary. It's a scary proposition for a first timer to come in and perform with all of that, with all of that on the to-do list. It's too much, and it's if I was a first time head coach, I wouldn't want the job either. It's nearly impossible to do all of that and still hopefully succeed.
Okay, I just thought of this question. Being that the Rangers don't broadcast their press conferences anymore, we're led to believe that last Wednesday or whatever it was, when all the quotes and the press releases came out, that someone was able to ask Peter Laviolette questions on the record, blah, 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 and you got the quotes we got. My question to you, Andrew, is before last... So we'll say they came to the final decision maybe Friday of the previous week, before last week. Before that day, do you think James Dolan could have picked Peter Laviolette out of a lineup? Do you think he knew what Peter Laviolette looked like when Chris Drury was like, "Hey, I think I want to hire Laviolette. Can you talk to him?" Do you think he knew what he looked like or not?
I would. I think he would, and only because I think he would, and only because Laviolette has coached forever.
Yeah,
Jim Dolan might not watch every hockey game, but he watches enough that over the course of many years, he knows, he has familiar
faces. That guy looks familiar. Wait a minute. That
guy looks familiar. So I feel like Peter Laviolette's a name that he knows.
Is that Bruce Boudreau?
Yeah. It's maybe with a little bit more. He got his hair back. That's incredible. Yeah, but it's Peter Laviolette has coached the Islanders. He's coached the Flyers. He's coached teams that Jim Dolan watches. So If nothing else, I feel like he would know who he is because this man has been around since the silent film era.
You think James Dolan's like falling asleep with like a bag of chips on his chest watching the Rangers like once a week in a recliner?
Once a week is ambitious. I think
Once a month?
I think he watches once a week if they're either doing really well or really poorly. Then his eyes are on the team. But if they're kind of just doing what they need to do and like maybe they win 2, lose 1, and like they're kind of like whatever, I don't think he watches a single second. I think he watches on the extremes.
I'm still entirely convinced that the reason he fired JD and Jeff Gorton 3 years ago is that one of his dickhead friends was like, why aren't the Rangers in the playoffs? And James Dolan looked at the standings and was like, wait a minute, we're not in the playoffs? And that's why he's like, this is unacceptable. We should be in the playoffs. And that's why he fired everyone and made Chris Drury the GM president. And I don't know, he's probably the director of something else too.
Well, the good, honestly, like the good thing about that is that John Davidson's back in Columbus, and they are making some silly decisions over there. So you know what, like
Dmitry Orlov, Damon Severson, Mike Babcock.
In hindsight, it could be like it's not that bad. The Rangers, in the moment, it looked like a bad decision from the Rangers, but like look at Madden. I mean, this guy's making some decisions over there, so I'm good.
All right, that'll just about do it for this week's episode of the Liberty Blue Podcast. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts on all the major platforms. Over on YouTube, we got graphics. There's going to be a lot of graphics this summer because we're going to actually talk about hockey on a hockey podcast, as crazy as that sounds. After the last 5.5 weeks of basically doing inside baseball political discourse on a hockey podcast, we're going to actually talk about hockey this summer, trying to evaluate ways the team can get better, players they could target. We told you Dylan Strome would be a better value than Vinny Trocheck last year. We did. We told you, we guaranteed it, and I went and looked. And I know I'm supposed to be wrapping up, but in the evolving wild, standing points above replacement metrics, Dylan Strome was worth $11.5 million last year. Vinny Trocheck was worth $4.5 million. We know what we're talking about. We put in the damn work that other people don't. Make sure you are watching every Monday, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Follow along on Twitter. We will see you guys next week. Until then, have a good one.
Later.